Now, the Elizabeth Warren campaign has been completely tanking. I believe the farthest she came, or the closest she came, was third in Iowa, and then ever since then she's been fourth. I believe she was fourth in New Hampshire. So she was fourth in New Hampshire, and so she came in fourth in Nevada again with not even hitting double digits, embarrassingly. And so there's this viral clip going around on Twitter. But really quickly, I want to let you guys know I'm on Patreon, patreon.com/theprogressivevoice. Link is in the description box down below. There are a lot of Patreon-only content that you can access, as well as early access to certain videos, and obviously you're supporting the show. So check out that link down below in the description box. Now, this video right here is a woman who's going to explain why she is taking down her Elizabeth Warren sign and why she is switching over to Bernie Sanders.
That's my Elizabeth Warren sign. It's hanging in our apartment, and I think it's really cool because all of the people in these big apartments here could see it. But, as promised, I'm going to take it down now. This is sad for me. I still like Elizabeth Warren. But listen, we've got to win. And I thought that by now Liz Warren would have a lot more support from minority voters. And I thought that by now she would be a little bit more in the lead, and that maybe she would have won over some of these stubborn moderates. But after seeing the way that Bernie's reached out to Latino voters in Nevada, I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about him being able to win. The thing is, we're all going to have to work together to make that happen. It's going to be all hands on deck. We can't let our feelings get in the way.
So that is a great video because, it's totally fair to have assessed that Warren would basically be able to do well with progressives and then minority groups and all that stuff. And then once you see her flailing, then you realize that Bernie Sanders is the one with the real chance because he's got the minority support. That's definitely a very cogent and very clear analysis that I can very much respect, especially because there's a lot of delusional Elizabeth Warren supporters, and so I'm not trying to put anybody down who's a potential Bernie voter, but a lot of Warren supporters are not, like at least on Twitter that I see, which is where I'm mostly at, are very delusional, and they genuinely believe that Elizabeth Warren has a chance at winning this thing. And so they keep saying, like, oh, she's still in this race. We need more women candidates. Send her $5. Keep her in the race. We've got a chance to take it all the way to the convention. Dude, you're going to have literally no delegates. You're not going to be viable in any state except for Massachusetts, and you're going to lose Massachusetts. You'll still gain some delegates, but Bernie's going to beat you in Massachusetts, your home state, which is really embarrassing. And so essentially what you've got is a candidate who has no chance to win whatsoever, not even close, none whatsoever. And so she's like, I'm throwing in the towel for Elizabeth Warren. I'm jumping in for Bernie Sanders because he's the real progressive and he is the coalition guy. And nobody talks about this, that Bernie Sanders is the coalition guy. So Bernie Sanders leads with young African American voters. He leads with young people by far and away. He leads with college folks. He also, by the way, this is something media never talks about. I didn't even know this. I feel guilty on my part for not knowing this. He leads by a lot with Asian Americans, okay? I didn't know that until now. I feel really sad for not knowing that. That's very crucial. He leads with Asian Americans. He also leads by a landslide with Latino voters, and that's largely, they're the ones to credit for the victory in Nevada as the Latino community. So big thank you and big shout out to the Latino community for being in the Not Me Us movement, part of Bernie Sanders' movement. So big shout out to them, of course. And, he's the coalition guy. And here's a fun fact, too. In that primary in Nevada, you want to know the person who got the most percentage of people who identified as moderate or conservative? It was Bernie Sanders. He was the one who got it. And the thing is people don't vote on ideological lines, it seems like. Or I should say, there's like a portion who don't. If you look at Morning Consult polls, Bernie Sanders is a secondary choice of Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. He's the plurality candidate for second choice for Joe Biden supporters. How wild is that? It's because people apparently don't vote on ideological lines. And so that's why Bernie Sanders would get the most. And that's why when, I think it was YouGov or somebody did their head-to-head matchups, because the talking point was like, oh, look, if you add up all the moderates, they beat Bernie Sanders. Well, now if you add them up, they don't beat Bernie Sanders. But what's really hilarious is they did the head-to-heads, and Bernie was mashing all of them in 1v1s, and that's because the mistake is, Warren has a fat plurality of her voters who would go to Bernie Sanders in second choice, and then in addition to that, Joe Biden, his second choice voters, plurality go to Bernie Sanders. So a lot of people aren't voting on ideological lines. So we need to change the narrative now, and it's starting to change with this Nevada victory, with winning the Latino vote by so much. Bernie Sanders is the coalition candidate. We've got young folks by a fat margin, young black voters. We've now got Asian Americans, okay, by a solid amount. We've got Latino voters. And so now we're just expanding even further, and so we're just expanding into everybody, essentially, into all these groups. So that's why Bernie Sanders is the candidate. And so shout out to this person on Twitter. Her username is Future Bird, who is now going away from Elizabeth Warren because she doesn't have a chance to win. Not being like one of the delusional Warrenites, seeing what's going on and voting for Bernie Sanders. Much respect. Welcome into the movement. Not me, us. Welcome in.